Hello and welcome to the webinar today on digital dementia. Hey guys, my name is Dr. Krista and we have an amazing webinar for today. We are going to be discussing digital dementia and of course, most importantly, how this applies to our patients. So let's dive into the material and I'm just going to get this sent off. As you guys are joining, if you could just type Y in the comment box and let me know that you can hear me properly. So go ahead and type Y in the comment box. Let me know that you can hear me and we are going to get started. And as you're joining, of course, let me know, where you're coming from and what you're up to. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us live. Hey, it's Dr. Krista with the American Posture Institute, and today we are talking about digital dementia. We are going to have a ton of fun. This is going to be an amazing webinar. Got it. We got this all figured out. So what I want you guys to do is let me know who you are, where you're from, and of course, if you can hear me. So just type your name, where you're from, and of course, let me know. Just give me a Y in the comment box. Let's make sure that the audio is working okay before we dive into the material. I want to make sure that you guys can hear it and understand it. And of course, we always want to know who you are, where you're from. So let us know where you're joining in from, and yeah, we're going to get this party started. Digital dementia is such an interesting topic. This is one of my most favorite things to talk about. Why? Because it's the best time in history to have a conversation about posture. Literally, posture is declining before our eyes. We have never been given this opportunity in history to really stand out within our community, make so much sense to our community members, and of course, have this educational opportunity. All right, I know a bunch of you guys are on live. So again, as you're logging in, just let me know who you are and where you're from and give me a Y in the comment box if you can hear me okay. All right. So again, we're going to be talking about digital dementia today. We have fun information for you guys to share. And anybody, if you haven't already joined our Facebook group, I do highly encourage that you join the Facebook group as well. So within the Facebook group, it's called Postural Neurology. And okay, it says you can't hear me. Let me just play with my settings here. Okay, Nancy can hear me. So if somebody else can just respond as well and let me know if you can hear me okay. Hi, Juliana. Hey, Nancy. Hey, Karen. Hey, Pooja. Hi, John. You can't hear. Okay, guys, can you hear me now? No. All right. Can you guys hear me and see me now? So sorry for these connection issues today. We were flawless last time and we're having a little bit of issue today. Just type Y in the comment box if you can hear me and see me now. Yes, okay, I have a yes from Omar. I've just restarted. It says no connection yet for Gerard. Okay, looks like I'm getting lots of yeses. Okay, you guys are awesome. Hey, my apologies. I apologize that we were having issues logging on today. Just a shout out to Gerard, Karen, Omar, Sarah, Simon, Karen, Jonathan, Laurence, David, Robert, Reva, Bruce, all of you guys. Thank you so much for joining in. John, Crystal, David, Robert, Nancy, Kevin, Eric, Simon, you guys are awesome. Thanks so much for bearing with me while I had those issues figured out. We will make sure that we get straight to the content because you guys have been so patient waiting. So today we're talking about digital dementia, and this is one of my absolute favorite topics to talk about. Because guess what? Right now is the best time in history to have a conversation with your parents, with your patients about posture. Because here's the deal, as patients get posture, and there is an imminent danger associated with the overuse of technology and poor postural design. We are going to dive deep into that concept today when we're discussing postural neurology. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here so you can see some PowerPoint slides. Once I do that, because we've had a couple tech issues, I just wanna Sarah Prince, if you can type slide into the comment box, make sure you guys can see that. Okay, so we are going to start our conversation with Lucy. So I want all of you guys to meet Lucy. Lucy was the first upright human being. So 3.2 million years ago, Lucy was the most advanced organism of her time, dating back 3 million years ago. Now, while all of Lucy's friends were running around on their hands and their feet, they were literally looking up to Lucy because Lucy gave them a glance into what would come from human evolution. Lucy's ability to stand on 2 feet and have an upright postural design changed the course of evolution for every single human being on this planet. Did you know that when human beings evolved to be upright like Lucy, that our brains tripled in size and functional capability? Your upright posture was the single distinguishing factor leading to the evolution of the human superbrain. So from the first step that Lucy took 3.2 million years ago, there was a tripling effect in brain size and functional capabilities of our brain. It took 3.2 million years to get to where we are today structurally, and just a couple of decades of the internet, of digital devices in the digital era to start ruining it. So today we're going to talk about how we can all come together with postural neurology and halt postural decline. We'll also discuss why it's the most important time in history to have this conversation with our patients to halt postural. And worse posture than we've ever seen before. So what we know from a developmental perspective is that children should play outside for a minimum of 2 hours per day. So when they're playing outside, what's happening to their neurology? So of course, one, it's fun, but what's happening as they're moving, as they're running around playing with their friends, they're jumping, they're moving, they're creating new motor patterns. They're utilizing their brain to create these new and dynamic motor patterns. Their motor cortex, along with their cerebellum, are creating new motor patterns. And every time that they're playing tag with their friends, or in this picture, they're jumping up and down, holding each other, as they're doing that, they're creating new sensations. These new sensations are coming into the brain and understood and perceived within the sensory cortex. So we're utilizing our brain, and every time we change our body position in relation to gravity, we're stimulating the vestibular system, and we're looking close to us and far away in the distance, so engaging all aspects of our visual system. So as we're playing outside, as these children are playing outside during their developmental ages, they're engaging their brain so much more than they are if they're just seated in front of a device without a lot of movement. So we know that children should be outside playing, but what's the reality? So there's a lot of statistics on these slides for you. Let me just read them, then we'll talk about them. So with modern day childhood development, what we're seeing is that infants watch 2.5 hours per day of TV, and 25% of infants have TVs in their bedrooms. So notice I'm saying infants, not even children. Infants have this amount of utilization of TV. Children use 7.5 hours per day of entertainment technology, and 75% have a device in their bedroom. 30% of children will enter kindergarten developmentally vulnerable. And then 30% of children are obese in the United States, and 25% are obese in Canada. 14.3% of children have been diagnosed with a mental illness. Half of grade 8 students do not have job entry literacy. So modern day childhood development, then if we look at the recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics, this is their policy statement, that children less than 2 years of age should not watch or be exposed to any TV or video games. Children older than 2 should restrict usage to 1 hour per day if they have any physical, mental, social, or academic problems, and 2 hours per day maximum if they don't. So we know that children should be outside playing, as we mentioned before. That's what's happening when they're outside playing. They're engaging their brain. They're creating new motor patterns. They're being active. They're stimulating their body. Whereas the reality is that children nowadays are using 7.5 hours per day of entertainment technology. Now, we've never seen this before. This is new and unique to the millennial generation. So the millennials are the first generation to be born in this world where it's normal to not be outside playing, where it's normal to be seated inside with minimal movement in front of a computer. So this posture position that you can see here of this woman is what we call flexor dominant posture. So with flexor dominant posture, our flexor tone, our flexor muscles in the front of the body, such as your pectoral muscles, are dominant. They're rounding forward and we're being pulled down with gravity. So with flexor dominant posture, you can see this slumped C-shaped posture, which is also called a postural hyperkyphosis. So when we talk about postural hyperkyphosis, we're talking about forward head posture. You can see that the ear is much further anterior in relation to the shoulder, and there's a rounding of the thoracic spine in that postural hyperkyphosis position. So this is the common posture that we see, a flexor dominant posture, as people are engaging with technology. So I want you guys to go ahead and take a look at this picture here. So if you were to Google Parkinson's disease or look in any textbook, this is the classic picture that you're going to see of Parkinson's disease. You're going to see somebody that has forward head posture. Again, the ear is forward in relation to the shoulder, that postural hyperkyphosis positioning. And when they walk, they're going to have a shuffling gait pattern and very minimal arm swing. Okay, so again, as the patient walks, postural hyperkyphosis, forward head posture, minimal arm swing, and a shuffling gait pattern. This is stereotypical Parkinsonian's posture. Okay, now go ahead and take a look at this posture. This kid's chasing a Pokemon on a cell phone, or maybe he's sending a text message. But do you see a similarity among the two postures? So with this Parkinson's posture, again, we have forward head posture, hyperkyphosis, and we have the same thing here with the Pokemon posture of the child. So I'm just going to... Okay, one second. Okay, so I'm getting some messages that you guys are losing connection. I'm wondering if that's just a couple of you or if that's everybody. So let me know. Just okay, I definitely see MJ and Pooja are having some issues. So if anybody else could just let me know, give me some feedback of if you're able to hear or not. Okay, so I want to demonstrate this regarding Parkinsonian posture and Pokemon posture. So again, going back to that example of the Parkinson's patient, what we see is forward head posture, anterior rolling the shoulder. When I walk, I have a shuffling gait pattern and no movement of my arms. Okay, now I want you to compare that to a child on their cell phone. So if I'm looking down at my cell phone as I'm walking, forward head posture, anterior rolling of the shoulders, I don't move my arms because I'm holding my phone and I have a shuffling gait pattern. So you can see a direct connection between Parkinson's posture and Pokemon posture. Now, what I want the main point of this to be is that with the main point of between the Parkinson's and the Pokemon posture is this, that Parkinsonian posture is in response to a brain disease, okay? It is in response to a brain dysfunction. Whereas Pokemon posture, tech-neck posture, is actually causing a brain deficit. Okay, so that's where we come in as posture professionals with postural neurology, is we want to reverse the postural decline that's then causing the brain dysfunction as if a patient has a brain disease such as Parkinsonian disease. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and go back to the slides here. Then it's important to realize that this is where we come in here with Pokemon posture. We have the ability of helping our children, helping our society prevent neurologic decline associated with poor posture. So flexor dominant posture with slow gait patterns is very common while looking down at a cell phone. And a flexor dominant sedentary posture, as you can see in this image, is very common amongst adults who are seated for hours per day due to their occupation. They're seated for hours and hours per day in these horrible postures looking at their computer. Okay, so now you're asking, why does all of this matter for my practice? How can you utilize this information in a way that's beneficial to you and to your patients? So I present to you what's called digital dementia, which is a modern day health epidemic that is going to affect our society in a way that we've never seen before. This is so new that I want to help position all of you ahead of this healthcare curve, because here's what we know from digital dementia. The millennials are a new generation. These are the first generation to be born in a world where it's normal to be seated without movement in front of a device for hours on hours upon end. Now, what these millennials and what these adolescents are now presenting with are dementia-like symptoms associated with the overuse of technology and poor postural design. So take a look at this image here, because this is going to explain what it is that I'm talking about with digital dementia. So when we're outside playing, we're stimulating all aspects of the brain. Whereas with digital dementia, what's happening is that we have an understimulation of the frontal lobe. Why does this matter? Your frontal lobe is important for reading, for writing, for motivation, for problem solving, for memory, and for motivation. So the frontal lobe is what makes us human beings. So as I'm seated and engaging with technology, I'm not engaging my frontal lobe, because within the frontal lobe, we have the motor output. So when we're not engaging in motor output, we are very minimal using our frontal lobe. And our parietal lobe here is for visuospatial processing. So visual spatial processing is the parietal lobe for proprioception and for spatial awareness. So again, if I'm seated in a chair just staring at the TV, my body doesn't, I'm not changing my joint position, so there's no stimulation of proprioception happening. And then the side here is, this is going to be the temporal lobe. So there is some activation of the temporal lobe for hearing and auditory processing, but then the cerebellum here. So the cerebellum is for accuracy, balance, and coordination of motion. So as I'm seated, I'm not moving, meaning I'm not stimulating my cerebellum either. But what's happening is I'm having an overstimulation or a bombardment of stimulation coming into the occipital lobe or the back of the brain. Now, your occipital lobe is how you make sense of what it is that you're seeing. So if I have incoming information, I make sense of this information in the back of my brain with the occipital lobe. Brain model. Okay, so last time I was switching back and forth, there was a little bit of a delay, so I'm just going to wait a quick second before I go into the main point of this, because I want you guys to really get this with digital dementia. Okay, so if we're looking at the brain model here, what's happening with digital dementia is that we have an under-engagement of the very important parts of our brain for humanistic characteristics and behaviors. So for example, the frontal lobe for motivation, for goal setting, for movement patterns is underactive. The parietal lobe for understanding where our body is in space, for sensory affect, for understanding our body position in relation to our environment, completely understimulated. The cerebellum down here is understimulated, which is important for accuracy and balance. Whereas the back of the brain here, the occipital lobe, is completely overstimulated. There's a bombardment of incoming visual signals that go straight to the back of the brain. But what's happening is we're not moving our bodies, so we're not utilizing the other parts of our brain that make us human. So what this results in then is signs and symptoms associated with digital dementia. Poor memory recall. We're seeing these disconnected teenagers who have very minimal motivation. They have ADHD. They have developmental delays and disorders. They're more depressed. They have anxiety. So all of these things are associated with the fact that we're attached to our devices in this poor posture and we're not moving like we should be as human beings. Remember, I showed you the pictures of Lucy. It took so long for us to develop into these upright bipedal bodies, and that's what differentiates us from all of the animals within the animal kingdom. And yet, although it took years to develop into a bipedal posture, every time we grab our cell phone, we go into more of a quadruped posture. And this quadruped posture is affecting our brain function. We're functioning at a less level of humanistic behavior. So this is where we come in again to make those changes. Okay, let's go back to the have this visual of digital dementia. So again, over bombardment of visual stimulation going to the back of the brain, the occipital lobe, with a very underactive engagement from the front of the brain. Now, to give you some examples, who here uses a GPS? So just type GPS in the comment section if you guys utilize a GPS yourself. And I'm going to tell you right now that I utilize a GPS myself. Now, maybe you've had this experience where we're so reliant upon our technology to get us somewhere that you'll get to your destination. Maybe you've been driving for about 45 minutes. And when you get there, you don't even remember how you got there. You can't even hardly remember the trip. So meaning that if you were to then try and find your way back, you actually wouldn't be able to do it without the GPS. What actually happened with that? What happened within our brain is that we were reliant upon technology. So as we're seated there in our car, likely in a flexor dominant posture with our hands forward and shoulders forward, then as I'm slumped there sitting in my car and listening to my GPS, then that's telling me how to get there. So whereas what we used to do before we had GPS is we would sit up straight in our chair and we would receive a map, or we would and we'd actually look at the map and then make sense of the map and then apply that to our surroundings. Or we would call a friend. I would call Sarah and say, hey, Sarah, how do I get to your house out in Utah? And she would say, okay, you're going to take I-80 and then you're going to take the second exit. As you get off the second exit, I want you to take your first left. You're going to see a Barnes & Noble. Then you're going to go straight past the Barnes & Noble and then take a right, for example. These are the directions that we used to get from our friends or our people. So what that means is that instead of listening to a GPS, what I used to do is I would engage my brain. I was very active with my parietal lobe of understanding where my body and within my car was within the environment around me. I was scanning my environment to check visual cues to see when I should turn. I was very acutely aware of where I was and where my body was, instead of just sitting there in poor posture, driving the car in a completely mindless behavior. So we become so reliant upon technology that we've stopped engaging our brain. And I know probably some of you guys have had that example where you get to your location now with GPS and you think, oh, I have no idea how I got here. I couldn't find it again. Whereas if I were to follow the directions that Sarah sent to me previously before we had GPS, I was very acutely aware of where I was and I would be able to find them again. Or how about phone numbers? You know, when I was growing up, I used to remember everybody's phone number. I knew all my friends' phone numbers, my family's phone numbers, everybody, because we didn't have the ability to put it in our cell phone and just never think about it again. So we used to actually utilize our brains in a way that would put together number sequences. Now, I mean, most of us don't know any phone numbers. So again, we're not utilizing our brains like we used to because we allow technology to just completely take that over. And then this is a really interesting one as well, is that with Googling answers. So what they've found amongst college students is that instead of even trying to remember information, 80% of college students now Google the answer first. So instead of even trying to have memory recall, we're so reliant upon technology as a society that we're actually Googling answers, 80% of us, before we even try and come up with the answer. So it could be simple stuff, you know, like what is the capital of Kansas, for example. So instead of even trying to remember that, which we all learned back in school, we're now just Googling the answer because it's there and it's easier to find. So how this actually applies to our practices and how this applies to digital dementia is not to get rid of technology. I'm certainly not suggesting that. I mean, technology, when it works, when you guys can hear me on the webinar, is absolutely fantastic. It provides us the opportunity of connecting in a way that we've never connected before. But here's the scary part, is if we don't change how our body utilizes technology, then we are going to we understand how to have better posture habit re-education, to have better posture while we are engaging with technology, we're going to be in for serious problems as a society. And that's where we come in with postural neurology. So let me give you another example. I gave you the examples about Googling answers and GPS and phone numbers, but also think about class. Maybe some of you are still students right now, or some of you are teachers, or you can reflect back to when you were in college. And, you could literally see just by looking at somebody's posture how engaged they were with the conversation around them and how much they were paying attention to class. So if you guys are anything like me, as you start to fall asleep, you kind of drift off like this, start to slump in your chair. Maybe you lean forward in flexor dominant posture onto your desk. These are the positions of less engagement, of poor posture. Now, when the teacher says your name because you're falling asleep in class, what's the first thing that happens? So if the teacher says Krista as I'm falling asleep, I go from this position falling asleep to what? I'm not falling asleep, right? What's the first thing that I did in order to become more engaged and get my attention back in class? I sat up straight. So when you sit up straight, that brings you back in present. It brings you back into the surroundings that's happening around you. It allows you to connect and engage in a whole different manner. Whereas when you're in this slumped posture, you're half asleep. You're not utilizing your brain like you could to be taking in the information of the lecture or the information. Maybe some of you guys are slumping right now, so I'll just challenge you to check your posture. So when you sit up straight, you're more engaged, and there's actually research studies demonstrating this. So as I am seated up straight in good upright postural design, I'm able to take in more information. I'm able to understand how I can utilize this information. And of course, I can reverse and prevent signs and symptoms associated with digital dementia. Because now with online learning, so for example, we're connected right now with online learning, but I'm up standing and moving around, and I highly recommend that you guys are standing right now too, or that you're sitting up with good posture, because if not, we're going to go into these slouch postures halfway asleep and barely take in that information. Whereas when we have an upright postural design, we're engaged and we're here and we're present. So maybe you even see this in your waiting rooms, right? Like after you take care of a patient, then you see them and they're in the waiting room in this slumped over posture. So you just did a great treatment with them. And then the second that they're done, they go back into that poor slumped posture again. So changing how we work with technology is going to change the future of our children, of the next generation of our society. And that's what evolve is all about. It took 3.2 million years to evolve into upright beings, a couple of decades to start ruining it. It's the first time in history that we're de-evolving. With postural neurology, we can reverse that decline in posture. We can reverse this de-evolution to keep succeeding and proceeding forward as the human society. So when you think about this at a larger scale, this is not work, this is a mission. This is a movement to be behind. I mean, imagine what the alternative is. The alternative is literally a world of cell phone zombies who are just literally looking down at their cell phone everywhere they go. They choose social seclusion in this posture. Did you know that patients in this posture with hyperkyphosis and forward head posture actually have less confidence in themselves? They see themselves in a lower level of self-leadership. They say more negative things about themselves internally. And on top of it, they have less engagement and are more likely to be social secluded. And forward head posture and postural hyperkyphosis is now a diagnostic factor in depression. So when you see your patient in the waiting room sitting in this posture after you've just taken care of them or right before their appointment, it is absolutely your job and your duty to bring them from here to here, a change in centimeters that will change the course of their life for better and for good for the rest of their life. Because if we take direct groups of people from the research and we have a group of people with poor posture and a group of people with good posture and we ask them to talk about themselves, the group of people with poor posture, they say things like, oh, I'm depressed, I'm stressed out, I don't like my life, I'm I'm a loser, I don't have any friends. These are the things that people with poor posture say about themselves. Whereas we take the group with good posture, and what do they say about themselves? I'm confident, I'm here to learn, I'm showing up, I'm a leader, I'm engaged, I like myself, I'm happy, I'm thriving. Just by changing your posture, a change in centimeters that will change the course of your entire life. So you can help your patients achieve this level of satisfaction with themselves, a level of better brain function to prevent developmental delays. Because if you're seated in class in this position, you're not taking in the information. And then, of course, you can then be diagnosed with an ADHD or slow learning problem. Whereas really, if we could just help these patients change their posture for the better, then it's going to help them have a better level of function, which helps them succeed, of course, when they enter the workforce and as human beings in general. So some things that I want you to look for with your patients for digital dementia are going to be this. You're going to see that disconnected look, where they're looking down at their cell phone, and they just seem very disconnected with what's happening in the world around them. So that's number one, is the level of disconnection. Number two is maybe their occupation requires them to be on technology completely, or every time you see them, they're attached to a device. Okay, that's something else to look for. Number three is, what does their posture tell you? So posture tells you that if they have that structural hyperkyphosis and forward head posture, it's likely due to their postural habits, and it's likely due to the overutilization of technology. Number three, I want you to listen for signs and symptoms of this. Developmental delays, headaches, depression, eye strain, anxiety, and developmental delays, lack of concentration, and lack of motivation. A lot of the times, it's not going to be the patient themselves that tell you all these things. It might be the parents. So when we're talking about adolescents, kids don't necessarily come in and say, I'm socially secluded, but mom will tell you. So asking the right questions and knowing what to look for is going to help you spot signs and symptoms of digital dementia. And then what do you do from a clinical perspective? What you do is you need to bring the patient from here to here with upright postural design. How you can do that is with a 3-step protocol: spinal alignment, posture rehabilitation, and posture habit re-education. So specifically with resisting gravity. So we want to stimulate the brainstem, because if we have dysfunction of the PMRF within the brainstem, we have a lack of inhibition of flexion, and we're lacking extension. So we want to stimulate the vestibular system to stimulate extension. We want to stimulate the PMRF to inhibit flexor tone. So we have nice upright extended posture. One of the best recommendations that you can give to your patients for posture habit re-education are these 3 items. 1, when engaging with technology, bring your cell phone up to eye level. While seated at your computer, instead of this posture, sit up straight and look straight on with your computer. Number 2 is to take posture breaks. So if we know that poor posture is associated with this hyperkyphotic positioning, and usually looking down as well, so neck flexion, anterior neck flexion, forward head posture, you want to reverse this posture every single hour. The best way of doing that is with a posture break. So gravity is pulling my body down in this position. What I want to do is reverse that. So for 30 seconds every hour, pull my head back, open up the chest cavity, bring my arms back, and reverse that posture hyperkyphosis position with a posture break. Hold this position for 30 seconds. And then after you perform the posture break, your patient is more inclined to have good posture after that. I also, in addition to that, for changing the posture, this is also good for reigniting their level of engagement, bringing them back present so that they can learn, they can stay on top of the tasks that they're doing. So again, a posture break every hour for 30 seconds. And then the last recommendation is sitting on a posture cushion. So a posture cushion is going to be an unstable surface. Why do I love this recommendation so much? Because of this. If I'm seated on an unstable surface, then I risk actually falling off the unstable surface. So as I'm seated on a posture cushion, it requires that I sit up straight, that I actually engage my musculature to hold my body upright against gravity. And every time I start to move, that stimulates the receptors within my inner ear for the vestibular system to bring my body back to central and bring my body back upright. So as I'm seated on a posture cushion, 1, I have more mobility of my spine, but 2, I'm engaging my vestibular system. Your vestibular system does what? Your vestibular system controls postural balance and upright postural extension. Whereas if you're seated on a normal chair, it doesn't matter how slumped you are, the chair will hold you up, so you don't have to have good posture. But if you're seated on a posture cushion, because it's an unstable surface, it requires you to utilize your body and your brain to hold your body upright against gravity. This is what we are designed to do. We are designed to thrive from up here, not from down here. When you see this posture with your patients, it is absolutely your duty to educate the patient themselves as well as their parents if they are an adolescent or pediatric patient. Because digital dementia is not coming, it's already here. You have the ability of staying ahead of this healthcare curve. You have the ability to detect this and correct this. Because last time I checked, there's not a drug on the market to reverse digital dementia. You are the person that needs to do this. You, the posture professional, the postural neurology expert, you are the solution to this imminent danger associated with the overuse of technology and poor postural design. Education starts with you. At the American Posture Institute, we want to arm you with the tools and the resources that you need to be on top of this healthcare curve. So understanding the neurology in relation to the posture system helps us then reverse engineer it. Because if we understand from a top-down approach the neurology controlling the posture, then when we set up our treatment plans and our posture habit re-education, we know what we're doing and why we're doing it. And from a greater scale, from a humanistic, from our societal level, we can reverse digital dementia, the worst health epidemic that we have seen in ages. And the crazy thing is it's just getting started. So you have the opportunity now to be the expert within your community, to stay ahead of this healthcare curve, and of course, help your patients thrive. Because if they continue to go down this road of postural de-evolution, we're going to see a decline in brain function that we've never seen before. This choice starts with you. And I'm saying choose postural neurology, choose education, choose to be empowered, and choose to empower your patients to live a happier and better life. All right, guys. First of all, thanks so much for your patience. I know we had some issues with the technology, but I do want to open it up for questions now. So if you guys have any questions about digital dementia or any specific patients that you've been working with, and you're wondering, does this apply to that patient? Or, maybe you're thinking, oh, okay, now I finally am making that connection of this is why the patient wasn't getting better. So if you, just from a personal perspective, when I started studying digital dementia, it was all because of one patient, and his name was David. So I was seeing this patient, David, and he was coming in regularly, and I was so frustrated with myself because I wasn't getting results with him. So I was doing what I normally do with patients. I was working with postural correction, but I didn't understand the brain connection, and he was really disconnected, and he wasn't getting results as I wanted him to. So from that single patient, David, he really brought me on this whole journey of knowledge to understand what was happening with him. And once I understood what was happening with him, then I discovered digital dementia and understood how this was applying to not only David, but like literally an entire new generation of patients. And so once you start studying this and understanding it, you start to see it everywhere. You saw the comparison of Parkinson's posture and Pokemon posture. Parkinson's posture in response to a brain disease, whereas tech-neck posture, Pokemon posture is actually causing brain dysfunction. You're going to see this everywhere now. If you look around an airport, it is scary, the posture that people have in an airport. Or when they're waiting in line, maybe at the DMV, for example, what's the first thing that people do? If I'm waiting in line, I grab my cell phone and I start going into this posture, and I then become disconnected with what's happening around me. So I go into this posture, I go into a computer coma, digital dementia. And unless we start educating patients within our community about this, then it's going to be something that becomes more and more imminent, affecting more and more people, and of course, creating more and more decline at a societal level. So this is our opportunity to step in and make those changes. All right, guys, do you guys have any other questions? Go ahead and type them in the comments if you do. Also, join us in the Facebook group, Postural Neurology. So within the Postural Neurology Facebook group, we have ongoing education relevant to neurology, the posture system, relevant to digital dementia, relevant to ways that you can apply this information within your practice so that you can really thrive with your patients and you can help your patients overcome this imminent danger. All right, Martin says, thanks for the great content. Looking forward to host you in Stockholm after the Talberg Chiropractic Symposium arranged by Eureka next year. Please, can you give me a link to where you buy your posters on the site? Okay, so posters, I do need to get a link for that. Martin, are you a part of our Facebook group in Postural Neurology? I will post a link to the posters in the Postural Neurology Facebook group. And as Martin mentioned, I'm going to be going out to Stockholm, Sweden and Talberg, Sweden for the spring. So I love speaking to any groups. If you guys organize any conferences and seminars, I'm always open to coming out and speaking to your groups and educating them about postural neurology. All right, Valerie says, are there any studies with postural neurology helping bones issues such as AS and issues on the side effects of AS? So with ankylosing spondylitis, this is going to be a little bit different than a brain-based approach. It's going to be slightly more segmental. But yes, in terms of reversing ankylosing spondylitis, then what we want to focus on is the postural distortion patterns that created it or that are resulting from it. So if you look at the postural design, you're probably going to see changes in gait. You're going to see pain patterns. And the thing with pain that I want you guys to realize is that pain is in your brain. So once patients start experiencing pain, then it starts to change how they view themselves, and it starts to change their posture in response to it. So actually improving posture can help our patients live at a better level. So I don't have a specific study off the top of my head for AS, but when we're applying this to any specific condition, I always want you to think, what posture do they present with? If you look at a posture image, how is that affecting their lifestyle? How is that contributing to symptoms? And if we reverse those postural distortion patterns, how can we help them have less symptoms? How can we help them function better? And of course, get them out of pain instantly. All right, Monica, do you think posture t-shirts? I have, this is my only posture t-shirt that I have. All right, Jonathan says, is a neurotransmitter biomarker showing a physiologic change with Pokemon posture, as seen with GABA inhibition with Parkinson's? So no, we're not seeing the same symptoms as Parkinson's, but what we're seeing is a change in brain function. So with Parkinson's, obviously this is basal ganglionic dysfunction, but with Pokemon posture, tech-neck posture, digital dementia, what we're seeing is under-engagement of the important parts of our brain, the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the cerebellum, the brainstem, an over-engagement of the occipital lobe. Martin, yes. Omar, thanks. Okay, so Martin, you are part of the Postural Neurology Facebook group. Very cool. I will post a link for those posters in there because I don't have it, off the top of my head. Dr. Scott, thanks for another great informational webinar. Dr. Scott, thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. Again, guys, I just want to apologize that we were having some tech issues. I hope that you were able to hear the information, okay? I have tons of information on digital dementia, so we can follow up with some blog material. We can follow up with any further questions that you guys have within the Facebook group. Anne says, this is fantastic by being a trauma specialist, very cool, who has studied the neurology tremendously. So Anne, what you're doing as a trauma specialist is huge. Thank you for everything that you're doing for crisis situations to help patients thrive. Very, very cool. David, great information. David, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. Laurence, I think Monica meant those posture shirt that hold your back. Oh, okay. I was confused by posture t-shirts. Okay, thanks, Laurence, for that comment. So with the posture t-shirts, here is my my recommendation or my interpretation of any sort of these devices that hold the shoulders back. I think it's good because it is saying, hey, have better posture. It's a reminder. However, if we don't actually go in and make structural changes to the posture, they're not going to be able to hold it. Meaning the second that they take it off, they're going to go back into a postural hyperkyphosis. So I'm not saying it's the worst thing, but I don't think it's the best thing. What I think is the best is this 3-component system: spinal alignment, okay, to bring them from here to here, spinal alignment treatment protocols, which is spinal manipulation, mobilization, stimuli to the spine, okay, spinal alignment, posture rehabilitation, so rehabilitating the posture. So for example, doing extension exercises. So if I go into a flexor dominant posture, I need to reverse this to inhibit flexion and stimulate upright extension. So the only way I can do this is with active exercises. So I want to focus on spinal alignment treatments, and then I want to focus on postural rehabilitation, also working with the visual system, working with the vestibular system, working on postural balance. The shirts or the things that pull your shoulders back are not going to stimulate your vestibular system. They're just not going to stimulate your PMRF, like these activities will be that we teach you in postural neurology. And then number 3 is posture habit reeducation. So this is a form of posture habit reeducation. But what I want is that the patient isn't reliant upon it. I want them to have good posture habits that they've created themselves with new habit loops and cycles versus being reliant upon a device to bring them into that upright posture. Okay. Omar says it's a Band-Aid. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a form of posture rehabilitation, and I can see some good in it, but I also don't want your patients to be stuck and reliant upon that. What I want to do is truly change their physical body and then change how they view the world with upright postural design, and then stimulate them to make these changes ongoing for ongoing posture habit re-education. All right, let's see. Great information. Laurence, and again, thank you. Monica, I apologize. I totally misunderstood your question previously. April, I could feel GPS. And then Simon says, can you send a link to the Facebook page and the posters? So the Facebook page is Postural Neurology. I'm just going to type that in here. So when you go to Facebook, what I want you to do is I want you to type in Postural Neurology in the search, and you're going to come across a Facebook group. So just request access to that. That is going to be your best bet. Actually, I might be able to just pull that up right now. Just give me a second and I'll answer another question while doing that. Let's see. Oh, lower IQ. April says lower IQ. I could feel lower IQ from a GPS. Yes, absolutely. It's amazing how great technology is, right? Like, we're able to connect across the world. You know, I have Martin who's joining us from Sweden. That is so cool. I love that ability to connect. But what I dislike is how disconnected as human beings that we're becoming because of our over-reliance on technology. So recognizing where we can thrive with technology and where we need to change our postural design so that we can continue to thrive as a human species. All right, I'm just posting the link here for the Postural Neurology Facebook group. Oh, looks like Sarah beat me to it. Thank you for doing that, Sarah. Laurence, merci. So I think you are, I think I had the opportunity of meeting you in London, and you are in Switzerland. Is that correct? Just give me a yes. Monica, yes, thank you for clarifying with Monica. Anne says trauma specialist, as in psychologist. Very cool. Okay, so yeah, so psychological trauma, which is as bad as actual physical trauma. I mean, when we talk about psychological trauma from a posture perspective, honestly, please, Anne, educate your patients of the importance of good upright postural design for changing their thought process and how they see their body. I mean, they did a research study. This is crazy. They did a research study of kids who are who play video games, computer games. So they're on their computer and they're in this posture playing video games. These children are like exponentially more inclined to choose social seclusion versus the kids who are outside playing with upright postural design. So please help them understand that, Anne, because we can change their entire psychology by helping them have better posture and having that better mind-body connection. Yes, yes, yes. I love it too, Anne. Thank you for the good work that you do. All right, Ross, do you think the back tone posture training device? I don't know back tone specifically. I'll be honest, I haven't researched it, so I don't want to give my opinion because I don't know a lot about it. Julie, great information. Thank you, Julie, for showing up. Thank you for being here. Cynthia, I do talk fast. Yes, you're right. Was there any specific information that you wanted me to reiterate, Cynthia? Just go ahead and type it in there if there was something that I said pretty quickly that you wanted me to go back and cover. All right, other than that, I think we're going to wrap it up. Cynthia, I am going to give you some time to type in something if there was something that seemed a little bit that I talked too fast over. Simon, less is more in some way, right? We struggle to draw the line, many things. You're right. Thank you, Simon. Okay, Cynthia, you're all good. All right, guys, thank you again. We have another webinar coming up, so I'll just make sure that we have a better connection next time, get these kinks worked out. With the next webinar, we're going to talk about how to 10x your clinical certainty. So what I love about neurology is I can stop guessing and 100% start knowing. So postural neurology gives me that certainty in practice that, I'll be honest, when I started practice, I didn't have. I was just utilizing what I was taught in school and kind of like hoping that I got good results. And if you guys are anything like me, that's a bad feeling as a practitioner. Lacking that certainty of what you're doing makes it difficult to set up treatment plans for patients. Makes it difficult to look them in the eye if they're not getting results and you really don't know why. So we're going to go through all of that in the next webinar, Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to talk about how you can increase your clinical certainty with understanding the neurology of the posture system. Again, postural neurology, stop guessing, start knowing. All right, Ross, thank you. Rebecca, thank you. Evelyn, thank you. Simon, Thank you. What does Rebecca have to say? As a PTA, I'm hyper aware of my posture, but working with geriatrics, yes. Constantly flexing to assist them. Transfers, manual work, yes. Yes, absolutely. So what Rebecca just said right there is she's a healthcare professional, a provider, but she's worried about her own posture. And of course, we need to practice what we preach. So she's working with geriatric patients specifically. So probably, I'm assuming, bending forward and doing a lot of lifting. So always watching your own posture, Rebecca, making sure that you have the devices that you need for good manual support so that you can take care of your own body and be that example for your patients. All right, Karen, thank you. All right, guys, make it a great day. And remember, it's posture by design and not by circumstance.